My fellow Ambazonians, journalists, publishers, and media men and women. This is Dr. AYABA. I've decided today to talk a bit about the role of the media in the Ambazonian War of Liberation and why Ambazonian media men and women and media outlets have continued, why they have continued to enable the colonization of Ambazonia. Why operating within Ambazonia? I know the principal argument is that, the media has to be neutral, it has to be objective, and it has to hold both sides accountable. Those are lofty arguments, and we would hope and expect that this objectivity is able to paint, not only an objective but a truthful picture of the reality that our people are going through. It is rare that in liberation struggles you find media outlets that are simply objective. Most media outlets, even in their editorials, take a clear position on the substantive issues, or at least on the foundational issue that has brought about the conflict. Even in times of peace, editorials are clear about candidates they support and why they support those candidates, policies that they stand for. It is rare to find, in times of great political upheavals, media outlets claiming to take a position of neutrality. The position of neutrality in moments of great upheavals and in ferocious conflict as ours has always been to side with the enemy. It's not based on the belief in what the enemy does. Sometimes it's based on fear. Ambazonian media men and women and Ambazonia media outlets have been a huge disgrace. Huge disgrace. Most of these media outlets, I have been part and parcel of them just through activism, friendship, associated sometimes with my brother's role in the media as both a publisher and as a journalist. Mr. Martin AYABA, my senior brother, worked with the Herald. He also worked with, I think, Cameroon Post. And he published his own newspaper, the Business Times. And so, despite that relationship that made me to meet most of these media people, I also developed a very strong relationship with the publisher of Cameroon Post, Padim Bawa. We were both members of the Cameroon Anglophone movement, and he was a pioneer of our struggle, and used the Cameroon Post as a platform to give the Ambazonian people a voice. Charlene Dichia of the Post, late Wache, and all of these people, we have been close. But it will be surprising that for the past 5 years, I have never been approached by any of these Ambazonian media outlets for our point of view. Not once have they what is your point of view? What is the point of view of the Ambazonian Governing Council? I know there are other actors, but I am also a main actor in the struggle. And to have gone all these years without a single possibility of these outlets asking questions or granting access or interview speaks volume, and I will factor this in the broader discussion which I'm making. I have granted interviews in the BBC, Sky News, SABC, many media, international media outlet. But isn't it surprising that that has never happened to any indigenous media outlet in Ambazonia, or at least even in Cameroon? The role of the media in times of great challenges is critical in maintaining a state of anarchy, subjugation, or in exposing situations that might invite speedy resolutions. In 1971, when what you now call Bangladesh, then referred to as East Pakistan, declared its independence, the Bangladeshi media was clear in its publications where it stood. It was absolutely clear in its publication, highlighted the plight of the Bangladeshis and exposed genocide and the barbarism of the Pakistani military. There was no middle ground. And that held true also for the Eritreans between 1970 to 1991. The Eritrean media made great strides in bringing Eritreans together. We are not talking only about, highlighting the plight of the Eritreans, strengthening Eritrean nationalism and resilience, and articulating the justness of the Eritrean struggle. The Eritrean media played an important role in bringing Eritreans together and to push the Eritrean struggle forward. During the South African struggle, what you now know today as the SABC, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, was then an instrument of deceit and manipulation, and upheld strongly that the system of apartheid was both natural and legitimate. They were notorious for hiding white violence while always headlining black instigated violence. And they denounced strongly many anti-apartheid leaders. They took a side with white supremacists. And the South Africans worked extremely very hard. And something happened in 1969. A voice spoke on a Freedom radio. And I quote what that voice said. This is the African National Congress, the voice of freedom. This government of slavery, this government of oppression, this apartheid monster must be removed from power and crushed by the people. Never give up on the struggle. The ANC had launched its own radio station, and that inspired many black media outlets to speak out. And they took a stand against, the rapacious white supremacist system of curtailment and deprivation. Many journalists were haunted. Media outlets were destroyed. But the activism of black South Africans, seeped through cracks, and international media outlets picked them up. The international media outlets, on the one hand, some took a stand for the apartheid system and some took a stand for the anti-apartheid struggles. Even in the Eritrean struggles, Journalists wrote books. I have one here on my shelf, Against All Odds. It was written by a journalist to showcase, Eritrean struggles. They visited liberated areas in Eritrea to see what was going on. Have you ever seen an Ambazonian journalist go down into an ADF or any other forces barrack and have an interview with the commander? Why are you fighting for? What are you fighting for? No, they sit in the comfort of their rooms and base arguments on second-hand information, deriding the Ambazonian struggle, claiming neutrality while projecting the legitimacy of Cameroon over Ambazonia. So let's assume that these journalists have to be objective. What about the foundational argument about the lawfulness of Cameroon's presence in Ambazonia? And if you have to be objective, wouldn't it be natural for the journalists or media outlets to take a stand for Ambazonia, calling to question the lawfulness of Cameroon's presence in Ambazonia, calling to question the system of occupation that Cameroon has instituted within Ambazonia? That's the least they can also do. While they can go around, being objective. We do not in this say these media outlets should not criticize Ambazonian actions. We also have to be responsible actors. And we expect even Ambazonian media outlets to call us out. But it will be critical to have these media outlets reach out. They have been a source of propaganda. They haven't been able to project Ambazonia. They have tried as much as possible to project the falsehood and the narrative of the enemy. And when it concerns Ambazonia, to project a sense of anarchy and chaos. Ambazonian must reject what we call the ad hominem arguments that appeals to the emotions rather than to the intellect. And if journalists and media men and women want to maintain their credibility rather than function based on fear and opportunities, they must be objective in stating categorically, based on fact, that Cameroon's presence in Ambazonia is illegal, and its actions to maintain that illegality constitute crimes against humanity, war crimes, and even genocide. Bangladeshi medias were clear and making it public that the actions of Pakistani military constituted genocide within the space of Bangladesh. We have seen in Ambazonia hundreds of massacres, systematic in nature, targeting a certain age group for physical elimination. That answers the question of intent, which is critical in the definition of genocide. We have seen military personnel acting as DOs ask for the evacuation of entire villages in the state of Manyom. We have seen the military move into Ambazonian villages and completely burn down entire villages, burning people in houses. attempt at physical elimination, partially or fully. We have seen thousands of Ambazonians kidnapped and renditioned to Cameroon, subjected to inhuman and degrading conditions, torture, both physically and psychologically. The press has been silent. It has continued as though it is business as usual, focused on making money, on capturing headlines that, continue to perpetuate the shallow reading of the kind of society that 60 years of intoxication has created. None of these journalists has been brave enough, whether it's the Post or any other one that exists there, to engage in kind of investigative journalism on issues, whether it's Ngabu, Awing massacre, Pinyin massacre, Bali massacre, the burning down of Kwakwa. In times of great danger and peril, we expect Ambazonian media men and women to take a side, to take the side of Ambazonia. That's the side of truth and justice. By taking the side of Amazonia does not deny them the novelty of objectivity. They can still be critical, but they must make it absolutely clear as Ambazonia media outlet where they stand in the great struggle between colonialism and freedom, in the great struggle between injustice and justice, in the great struggle between the right to the control of your own territory and occupation. In these struggles, Ambazonian media outlet cannot be neutral. Neutrality within this context is defined as siding with the enemy. And that's exactly what they have done. They want pages in their newspapers to be bought by businessmen and women so they can make money. They don't look at the long term. Some of them have immersed themselves in the palaver within the groups. They've taken sides. They've projected falsehood. They've projected anti-nationalist sentiments. That has eroded the confidence in their work. I call on Ambazonian media outlets to reconsider their positions and take a stand for Ambazonia. It is the right thing to do. All of us must take risk. This is collective resistance. We expect these media outlets every Monday to keep their front pages blank in solidarity with the men and women in the dungeons of La Republique's jail, with those who've lost their lives, in solidarity with families that have lost loved ones, in solidarity with our people going through carnage. We expect this media outlet on October 1 to unequivocally declare it as Ambazonians Independence Day and join us in the celebration without fear. That's taking a stand. Mr. John Frundi and another colonial apologist describe our fighters as illiterate. What do you expect if all the so-called intellectuals are sitting in the parliaments of La République du Cameroon, are colonial apologists, are in media offices claiming neutrality, siding with the enemy? Of course, we, the illiterate, will rise up and pick up arms to defend our freedom. This should be a struggle for the Ambazonian people, the literate, the illiterate, the haves and the haves not, all of us together, bonded as one people against a 60-year-old tyranny that has murdered thousands of our people, laid waste our coasts, looted our country, and paid us back in tears. In times like the moment, we expect everyone to take a stand, and that includes men and women of the media.